Hello, what's going on to the elephant in the room? Baby, I pray that it's not just you get the notification, you say hello, and then you dip. I pray that at least somebody that gets the aesthetics and can get the humor and the jokes, sticks around. Not that you may get any of the content or context of the shenanigans that we talk about. I pray that I work this out of my system and get back to the aspects of tabletop role playing games and role playing games as they enmeshed and meshed with what I was doing with them, and how I was working them into the meta RPG and the time traveling experience and the work, just doing them for my purposes. But as is often the case, we come to a world, we experience a world, we seek to gain input and from the world, and we come and we want to tune in to get updates about new products or new rules or discussion about things. But we also get the culture, and we get the people in the culture, and we get what's happening in the culture, and we see the mishigas and we see the shenanigans. And quite frankly, I feel driven, as I felt driven in the last community, the new age spiritual conspiracy theory community, to say, what the F, and to just say where I see irrationality, to say, can we have a little rationality? I have, which may, for the people who have seen my work and seen my output, say, you think you're bringing rationality to the discussion? You think that you're bringing common sense? Come on. And I just want to say to you, to those who think that way, yes, actually, the insanity that I see and observe is that this is my response. I feel is commiserate with the insanity. I mean, we have we have people who are attorneys at law, who are um, speaking as amateurs, like speaking like amateurs. It is just inane and insane. And I just wanted to say to these people, like, if you think that you're the only attorneys, licensed attorneys in the realm of tabletop role playing games, and if you think you're the only attorneys in the realm of tabletop role playing games who are on YouTube or who have access to YouTube channels, you're wrong. You're just like, absolutely, it's insane to think for you guys to think that you're the only ones. But for the vast majority of us, I mean, I'm already out there. My last channel, I already made the mistake of letting the world know that I was an attorney. I've already been sued by a wackadoo UFO blue avian contactee. It's all out there, so there's no point in me not talking about being a lawyer or whatever. And then you got guys like Joe the lawyer who just says, yeah, he's a lawyer, so he's a lawyer in his name, and so but he doesn't talk about anything. But then you got to know, guys, like, the reason that the vast majority of people who are attorneys don't talk about, bring it up, or talk about it, or start a YouTube channel, or talk about legal issues. And you got to know that there's intellectual property law attorneys out here who are watching you guys, and they're saying, like, you guys are idiots. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. We have an amateur out here who's actually constructing an, like, I guess he's going about the process of constructing an open source license himself. So wait, you don't have 10 years of law experience in the realm of intellectual property law, let alone open license structures or the history of open licenses, but you're going to construct an open license? People can do whatever the F they want to, right? A general practitioner is a licensed physician. If someone comes in and they could treat a person, but a general practitioner generally knows if the symptomology goes above X, Y, and Z, yeah, we're gonna send this guy to a hospital, or we're gonna refer you to a specialist. You need to see a urologist. Really, at this point, my friend, the test came back, and I don't like to say this, but I think we're going to have to talk to an oncologist. I think we're going to have to get you an MRI. We're going to have to go to a specialist on this one. And you don't become a specialist overnight. You don't become a specialist by coming across one particular issue and saying, this, that, or the other. it boggles the mind how people are behaving. But maybe it shouldn't. We can speak in generalities, and we can speak in perchance biased language. You know, I've said it before. Just because you like Rick and Morty doesn't mean you're a genius. And even though Dungeons and Dragons and role playing games had the reputation of being a game for nerds, if you actually hung out with Dungeons and Dragons player, and if you actually hung out with nerds, right? There's the movie Revenge of the Nerds where all of the nerds were like, I can invent that with I'll take apart my calculator and turn this into this. And they're all computer science maniacs and, do this, that, and the other thing. But if you actually sit at a Dungeons and Dragons table in middle school and in high school, you realize and you understood that just because your friend had glasses and the calculator and the pocket protector, and just because he looked like one of the guys from the movie, Real Genius or Revenge of the Nerds, didn't mean he knew how to build a rocket ship out of a calculator and a trapper keeper and, your old Tandy 800 computer. You know what I mean? It just wasn't the way it went down. We say hello to the elephant in the room, Golden Coin 100, Tim Frey, Jonas Side, and David Bucky. Thank you guys for joining me early on May the 4th. May the 4th be with us all. So we talk in cliches. The cliches are not always true. Just because you play Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons has a little bit of math in it, and then it might not be the activity that the average moron, gravitates to, doesn't mean that you're necessarily a super genius cut above everybody else. And I think that plays out. Also, we say a little also to Tolkien study. Also this, if we're speaking in generalities and in assumptions, and then let's say like kind of bigotry, like kind of like making too many assumptions, talk about stereotypes. You wouldn't want to make the assumption about anyone just based on their things. But if we're speaking in generalities, I can make certain assumptions about why I'm seeing certain things going on in this tabletop role-playing game space. Adults behaving extremely irrationally, even educated adults. And I'm not just talking about the lawyers that are fans that are getting involved. I saw the lawyer that actually wrote the open game license for Wizards of the Coast speak, and I was extremely unimpressed with him. And I got to tell you something, I'm extremely unimpressed by the writing of the open game license itself. And granted, I'm not an intellectual property attorney, but to me, it's not a well, it's not locked down in any particular way. The SRD doesn't, appear in the actual gaming license itself. You'd have to do research to find out what was actually published in it and do all this stuff. And, it's not really great as a piece of writing myself is concerned. But then again, I concede that I'm not an intellectual property law attorney. But I will also concede that what I know from intellectual property law is that it's a different animal than criminal law and a lot of other areas of law, which is a lot of it's business contracts, and a lot of this open source stuff is an area of the law that is new. This open game license has not been battle tested in the courts. The way we figure out if a contract is going to be legit and valid, the way we figure out if these open game licenses and these open licenses, how they work, is when the courts in the various jurisdictions, America, the EU, not Canada, sorry, look at them and how the judges look at them and how they interpret them and whether they strike them down or whether they say that this is valid or this is invalid. And the fact of the matter is this. You have people out here acting as though Wizards of the Coast is constantly going around and suing everybody. That is not the case. The reputation for litigation and heavy litigation against third-party publishers is a reputation that was earned by a preceding organization known as TSR back in the day. And this goes right into this whole thing with the Wizards of the Coast sending out the Pinkertons and people talking about the Pinkertons being union-busting guys. The Pinkerton organization is, like, I think, changed hands multiple times as well. You want to go to hell? You want to start banning Coca-Cola because they're poisoning the kids with cocaine because of what they did with their original formula back in 1800 whatever? And again, people are just, they're going to read out news articles and they're going to assume that because they don't like Wizards of the Coast, everything the Wizards of the Coast said is a corporate lie, and everything this guy, this Magic the Gathering card player said is 100% the truth. And I'm not saying that this little guy lied and Wizards of the Coast is telling the truth. I'm saying that nobody who wasn't there knows. And what are people going to say if it turns out that the reason that Wizards of the Coast sent the Pinkertons because there was an actual investigation of this distributor and of this guy, knowing that this distributor intentionally sent this guy cards that this guy knew he wasn't supposed to be showing, and he showed them because he knew he had good stuff to show. He had a get. He had early editions to show. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying no one knows yet that it is the case. And they're going on the fact that Gizmodo says that Wizards of the Coast story doesn't line up with this guy's original story, and therefore, like, Gizmodo are the greatest journalists in the world. They're not. But you have people that are purported licensed attorneys reading off Gizmodo articles and just taking one side of the story and saying, you see. How does that happen? It happens when logic and rationality and reason leaves the building and people are completely driven by their passion for what? When I was in the world of conspiracy theory, ufology, and conspiracy theory, people were losing their minds, but they were losing their minds because they thought elections were being stolen. They thought people were being babies and old people were being poisoned and killed and euthanized over this. I mean, they were wackadoo theories and they weren't true, but you could at least understand and know because of psychology, because of the degradation and disrespect of their humanhood over time, because of socioeconomic conditions. You could see how a human would get that way. But to see attorneys at law be completely devoid, losing their logic and reason over games of cowboys and Indians, over who's better, Coke or Pepsi, Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons. And Wizards of the Coast is going to destroy this hobby, and they're going to do this, they're going to do this. And the end result is, I believe, that in this cluster F civil war of everyone trying to prove that Wizards of the Coast are the worst people ever, and everyone's got to abandon Dungeons and Dragons, everyone's got to go over here and over here and over here and over here, that the end result is the inevitable death of analog role-playing games that we were going to see is going to, in fact, be fast-forwarded and sped up. Because the fact of the matter is, I argue that any growth that we have seen ever in the realm of tabletop role-playing games has been the result of this metagame, this huge game. Let me show you the worst version of it that everybody hates. Dungeons and Dragons. It started with Dungeons and Dragons. It will probably end with Dungeons and Dragons. And everything else happens around Dungeons and Dragons. It's not just the most popular. Right? It's almost like it's not just, it's like it's Judeo. It's not just Christianity. It's like Judeo-Christian thought. The Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, the Mormons, the Unification Church. It kind of all happens around here. it's an imperfect analogy that doesn't account for everything, but it accounts for a lot. It's not just the fact that it started with Dungeons and Dragons, that it was the first role-playing game. It's that if you think about it, think about the D20 system in the year 2000, right? Here's the argument. Dungeons and Dragons is the most popular game, and every other role-playing game around it kind of happens because of Dungeons and Dragons. Even the only game that was ever supplanted Dungeons and Dragons as the best-selling game was Pathfinder, and it only supplanted Dungeons and Dragons as the most popular role-playing game for a time because people were in revolution of 4th edition, so people wanted to keep on playing traditional Dungeons, what they regarded as traditional Dungeons and Dragons, which was basically 3rd edition 3.5, and so they called Pathfinder 3.75, which was just a revitalization of 3.5. They could call it 3.75. It's 3.5. They could say it's a different thing. It's 3.5. It just is. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And I think people are parsing, parsing hairs when they talk about the differences of these things as being completely different games. The introduction of a variety of house rules and derivations and slight modifications, I don't think makes the game fundamentally different. Horse is a variation of basketball, but it's still basketball. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like, it's not like, it's not, it doesn't exist within its own realm of experience. Say hello to Neurolancer. Here we go. Neurolancer, what are you on about, dude? Question mark. D&D is so big not because of anything that WotC did. It is huge because of Critical Role and others bringing it to the mainstream. Neurolancer, I don't think you can justify that statement, but the fact that you could come in when I'm 17 minutes and 23 seconds in and say that, I think goes to show that you might have a given point of view, and that's fine. And given points of view are granted, but I think that goes to my point, which is this: people are behaving irrationally, people are behaving impassioned, right? You're motivated, but you're not being logical. D&D is so big not because of anything that WotC did. Is huge because of Critical Role. First of all, Critical Role, you know what I mean? It is what it is. But I mean, to say that, I don't think is here's an analog. Here's a thing you could say. And you heard he say Donald Trump, like America is great because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not great because of America. People can say that, but it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg? If we say that, we can get into a complicated philosophical discussion, because the notion of a chicken is born from an egg. But if we go and try to have that same discussion regarding Critical Role or Dungeons and Dragons, it doesn't make any sense, because Dungeons and Dragons existed prior to Critical Role. Critical Role doesn't exist prior to Dungeons and Dragons. The two can be Critical Role cannot be bifurcated from the history of Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons can be bifurcated from the history of Critical Role. The same thing with Pathfinder. Pathfinder doesn't exist without Dungeons and Dragons, but the history of Dungeons and Dragons exists without Pathfinder. And I'm not here to say that Dungeons and Dragons is the best role-playing game ever, or that Wizards of the Coast are the best company ever, or the best guardians of this game or hobby. What I'm basically here to say is that, people are not thinking correctly, because instead of thinking, they're just trying to, move the world towards what they think is going to be what they want. And I don't even think people know what they want or what is possible. Look, if you're a fan of print media, if you work in the realm of print media, whether you're an author, a distributor, an editor, a warehouse worker, you need to know that your job is in jeopardy. Not because people are dicks for not reading, right? Not because the unintellectual clods of the world are destroying everything. But because the world is moving and the technological basis of the world is moving away from pulp and printed material towards a digital future. And it's just the way that it is, baby. And the reality of things bear that out. So when I see people saying Wizards of the Coast are destroying things in this way because they're moving towards this virtual tabletop and whatever, I say a couple of things. Number one, you need to know and understand that the people of Wizards of the Coast are Wizards of the Coast for a reason. Everyone thinks that they're super genius of the millennium that knows exactly how the world should go and exactly how the world should be, right? It's like Monday morning quarterbacking, or the guy at the bar who hasn't never left that seat at the bar, but he can tell you everything that's wrong with what the president of the United States is doing, and he can tell you exactly how to solve the problem in the Ukraine. But every day you can find them for 3 or 4 hours a day, sitting right there at that bar, glued to that TV and yapping on to the bartender and two other three or people there. And that's where he lives, and that's where he's going to die. But he knows all the solutions to all the world's problems if only somebody would listen to him. But you know what? He doesn't have all the solutions to the world's problems. He just thinks he does. Just like, if you're being honest, and I don't know, the fact of the matter is, I don't know if you're coming in here to troll me, if this is what you really believe. If this is what you really believe, I dare say, I believe that you're totally wrong. But you're allowed to. Here you go, this. Neurolancer, don't give me analogies, look at actual data. D&D 5e was chugging along, pulling people who played Pathfinder First Edition. The sudden surge in popularity is because of the mainstreaming of D&D. That's, you just told me to look at data, and then you started to give an explanation of the data. The data doesn't bear out the explanations. If you want to point me to an actual article, if you want to point me to actual statistic, Neurolancer, that's fine. But here's what's really going on. Neurolancer, you're going to have to bring something to the table. You're going to have to tell me who you are. You're going to have to tell me what you know. You're going to have to tell me why you believe what you believe. You can't just dig at me. You can't just come at me. You got to come at me and tell me, and not just tell me this is the way it is. You're going to have to do this, and it can't just be pointing to a data set that you say exists, right? Because it's like the old saying, like 90% of statistics cited on the internet are just made up. Anyone can say anything. And I respectfully disagree with you. I really do. I respectfully disagree with you. And even if what you're saying is right, it's irrelevant to the argument that's being made. Because the argument that's being made is, now, in 2023, first of all, a couple of things. Number one, the 20-year nostalgia loop. In 2000, Wizards of the Coast issued 3rd edition. If we go back 20 years, 1980 was right when Dungeons & Dragons was picking up steam. The basic Dungeons & Dragons was switched off from Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and that's where we started really, really ramping up steam, and the first hints of Dungeons & Dragons culture really started to generate. So we see the 20-year nostalgia loop is linked to this success of this generational thing that is happening with this tabletop role-playing game community that is created by Dungeons & Dragons, grew up with Dungeons & Dragons, and happens around Dungeons & Dragons, whether you want to believe it or not. And here's the fact, Neurolancer. I'm 47 years old, okay? So we deal with, there's the thing that's happening with this community is this. There are people that come into the journey in all sorts of different spaces. So you have these grognards that have been playing since 1974 who are talking about this culture as if the people that came in 2000, or the people that came in with Pathfinder First Edition, right, are part of the same culture that they are, when the fact of the matter is that there's a continuation, there's a continuum, and yes, but the fact of the matter is that members of the World War II generation are distinct from the baby boomers. Baby boomers are distinct from millennials. They're all Americans, but they act, behave, and engage in the world in distinct ways. Okay? So we might be looking at things differently. But also, if people have history and know about things, then sometimes people know about history and know about about things. Okay? And that's not to say that I'm right and you're wrong. It just is what it is. Also, I'm allowed to talk and I speak freely, and you have to, type. So you're at a distinct disadvantage. So I appreciate that, and I'm not trying to, come down or come at you. And you're allowed to disagree with me. But if we come and follow the 20-year nostalgia loop up to 2000, then we see in 2003 the 3.5, okay, and all that, the problems that had. But that's interesting because then we have fourth edition in 2008, which lines up perfectly on the 20-year nostalgia loop with second edition in 19 almost perfectly with the second edition in 1989. And at the same time you have Pathfinder 1E, because it comes out at the same time as Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, lines up perfectly with 2nd edition. But now we have this remaster project that lines up perfectly on the 20-year nostalgia loop with 3.5. Okay? But what did we see happen in 2002, but especially 2003 with the ubiquity of the D20 system? There was a flourishing. But much like with Atari, the Atari 2600, there was a flourishing, but everyone published, everyone was using this system, and a lot of it got watered down. And when we come to 2023, we have to know and understand that while the cycle may repeat and the culture may still be going through its thing, if the environment has structurally and critically changed, then it may not survive. So Wizards of the Coast in 2000 came up with third edition that was very, 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 very popular. And fifth edition is very, 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 very popular. If we look at what has been the most popular role-playing game at every instance throughout time, and I'm going to argue, even for the brief period of time that Pathfinder was the best-selling game, it's always been Dungeons & Dragons. Okay? And the question is whether moving into the future as print media is dying, and I'm going to argue analog role-playing games are going to inevitably die because computers do this stuff better. This particular activity, whether you understand in the realm of mini wargaming or strategy wargaming, like with traditional war games or with Warhammer 40K or Warhammer, Age of Sigmar or whatever, fantasy wargaming, or whether you understand it in the realm of tabletop role-playing games. The ubiquity of technology at the table, the ubiquity of people doing more and more role-playing online because they simply can't find other players or whatever, moves everything onto this digital space where this analog hobby will inevitably become absorbed by its CRPG brethren. And as things move, if technology increases and technology doesn't, take a downturn or the world doesn't end, the need for print media and therefore the need for analog rolling of dice and the participation of doing these things, by hand and with our brain cranking these numbers will become nonsensical. It's illogical to assume that people will engage in this activity. It's as illogical as to assume that people are going to play ball in a cup if they've got, a PDA or an electronic device that they can play a video game on. The kids are not going to play ball in a cup if they've got the option to play a game on a phone. You can say never say never. I'm saying never. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, I feel like it's the kind of the way that it is. But that's why I put hashtag change my mind. I'll listen to other things. Here's Nerlance says, I'm 45. I played since AD&D second edition. I'm from Asia and I've played over 20 different RPGs. I'm not in the publishing business. That's fine. I wasn't to say that you're the person doesn't need to be in the publishing business. I play D&D 4 times a week and run 3.5, 5e, and Pathfinder second edition. You play 4 times a week? Analog RPGs will not die, but they will not be the primary way people play TTRPGs. Now, look, absolutely. Okay, first of all, a couple of things. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Neurolancer. You're a unique individual. If you're being authentic, you're a unique individual, right? But that's great. That's great. Um, Analog RPGs will not die. Look, we still have ball in the cup, right? The what's known as Viking chess still exists. Mancala is a game that they believe is thousands and thousands of years old, right? But we could say something like RPGs will never die, but will it be a viable community? Will it be a viable hobby? I'm going to argue, and I'm arguing that I collect these books because of my involvement with this hobby as a youth, and that this is a nostalgic activity, and I think it's got value. I think it's got a high rate of value, but I know and understand, having seen video games progress from the Atari to the Nintendo to the Super Nintendo and beyond, and seeing immersive role-playing game experiences occur within those spaces, that I don't know and understand how this analog hobby is going to continue in any other way other than in a way similar to Viking chess, in the sense that I believe that there'll be historians who know and understand that these things existed. But I gave the example in a recent stream where I said, if we imagine, Neurolancer, a world where people are engaged on a daily basis in immersive, truly immersive virtual realities, where they can experience in a truly immersive fashion medieval fantasy Tolkien-esque settings with flying dragons, flying mounts, the whole nine. Could we truly imagine them saying, I'm unplugging, it's time for me to have my, daily recommended dose of outside of the bubble walk around time, so I don't go, full flabo, or don't go totally, gelatin or whatever? Can we imagine that person or person saying, here we are out in the park, what we should do? Who's up for a little D&D? I'd imagine that they would say, here we are outside of the virtual space, here we are in reality. I'd imagine they take their time to be in reality, to not go into another pretend space where they would be using their brains to pretend these things that they could have gone to. I mean, it was one thing. Look, when we were playing, those original, when I was playing Final Fantasy One, or the original Ultima port to the NES, I understood that I was getting something out of it that was analogous to what I was experiencing with role-playing games, but I certainly understood that there was a lot left missing. But when we get up to Skyrim, and we go beyond that, I'm having a hard time understanding how to tell my kids, you really should invest your time and effort and energy in learning the systems, or learning multiple systems. And what I'm also going to say is this, is that, so we don't, spend too much time on one particular argument, because I've got, a whole bunch of things that I've got a timer set, because I can only stay here for so long, is if the argument was, we all have to leave Wizards because Wizards of Dungeons are poor, excuse me, are poor stewards for this hobby, right? Because that was part of the argument. Their attempt to do something with the OGL is going to be horrendous, even though they didn't do anything. In fact, they went and they made the 5th edition onto the Creative Commons, so there's no reason for anyone to do anything. Now with Critical Role doing Daggerheart and not only Pathfinder Second Edition, going to the orc, to going and doing the 2.5 remastered. Don't call it a remaster. Don't call it 2.5. Whatever. And going to this orc license that they're going to encourage people to use. No one's going to use the orc license. Whatever. But now you're going to have people with competing open licenses. It is going to be a cluster F. So you're going to have competing systems. So now we had a dwindling community. People are going to say whatever they want to say. Here's my argument. The tabletop role-playing game community was the size that it was, that if you wanted it to grow, you needed to nurture, you needed to respect everybody, you needed to not snipe at each other, you needed to not pull people from other people, but you needed to rather organically have an attitude of, rising tide, raises all ships. But instead of doing that, people were like, let's try and assassinate WotC so we can get these 5e players. And look, I have made my call. I have looked at the behavior of the podcasters over at Critical Role. I have made my analysis of the rules lawyer. I've made my analysis of several people who have spoken about this issue with WotC and the OGL and all the controversies. And I don't think there is almost no one out here with clean hands. Everyone has an agenda. Whether the agenda is simply Coke versus Pepsi and they like Coke versus Pepsi and they want to see Coke be number one, or whether they're just being, going along with the mob mentality. Everyone is saying that WotC sucks, so if it bleeds, it leads. If I make a video that says WotC have done it again, they're sending Pinkerton people out. And that's the other thing. It's just lemming season out here. The top 5-6 people say one thing, report one thing about a given event in the tabletop role-playing game community, and then everybody just parrots it without a moment of thinking. And this thing with the Pinkertons and this YouTube kid is a perfect friggin' example. You do not think that the OGL stuff did not turn people off? I think it absolutely turned people off for no fucking reason, Neurolancer. Here's the OGL controversy in a nutshell. WotC had a draft of a perspective change to the OGL. Third-party publishers with a financial agenda who knew that this license would be bad for them, not bad for people, not bad for the kids, not bad for role-playing, not bad for them, published it and made sure that everybody knew what the third-party publishers wanted them to know about that open game license perspective change. And so everybody knows something about the OGL. They don't necessarily know the reality of the OGL or what was going to happen or what could have happened or what might have happened. And by the way, Neurolancer, what happened and why do people think about Wizards of the Coast doing an absolute about-face, bootstrapping and strengthening the original OGL, double dog, absolutely promising never to touch it ever again, and in fact, putting the 5th edition into the Creative Commons. All those people who said this OGL is sacred, can't be touched, it's what made our industry, it's what created our industry, I can't believe that the Wizards of the Coast are so bad, we have to get away from them because they're going to change the OGL. Then Wizards of the Coast says, wait, we were never going to change it. We were talking about, it was a draft. We were talking to people, and they shouldn't have really told you about it. But beyond that, we're not going to, and we promise we're not going to. In fact, here, look, we heard you, community, and we're gonna even put 5th edition on the Creative Commons. All of a sudden, all those people who told you the OGL is sacred, it's so important, we can't change it. All of a sudden, did they say, okay, now that Wizards of the Coast has said they're going to keep it, and it's the tentpole that created our community and kept the community going. Now that Wizards of the Coast has said they're never going to change it, we can all relax. We can all relax. Did they say that? No. And why not? Why not? You know why not? Because it was never their agenda to save the OGL in the first place. It was always their agenda to get away from the OGL. It was always their agenda to get their own license. It was always their agenda to get their own system going. It was always their agenda to go their own way. It was always their agenda to get away from the SRD. Why, Neurolancer? Because to get away from the SRD means to get away from material that could be reproduced by other people. If Critical Role are working off material that's generated by the SRD, then Critical Role would be working off material that other people could bootleg, bootstrap, and create and say, you like Critical Role? Well, check it out. Role for Critical Success is a solo dungeon crawling adventure that you can get for pay what you want on DriveThruRPG, and it's exactly like it'll help you recreate the adventures of da-da-da-da-da-da-da, because just like Critical Role's Daggerheart Adventures, it too is based on the 3.5 rules SRD. I can't have. Oh, I allege. I think. I conjecture. People get an eighth. That is BS. You can't say that's BS. I've been very respectful to you, Neurolancer. You be respectful to me. You can't say that's BS. You can apologize. You could say you disagree with me, but to say that that's BS, is just to merely to discount my opinion. No offense, my opinion is educated and researched. That is BS. The proposed OGL change was draconian. That's you're parroting words that were taught to you. And Watsy putting 5e in Creative Commons is the right thing to do. Okay, so they did the right thing to do. Many people have returned since. Okay, one D&D playtest responses have shown that. So you're agreeing with me. You don't know what you're doing. See, you're impassioned. You're wrapped up. You're spinning. You're spinning. Relax. You're probably on my side, and you should be. Put on the glasses. Do you ever see the movie They Live? Neurolancer, let's talk personal. My alarm went off, so I've got a couple minutes for you, just for you. Let's stop. Did you? Yes or no question. Did you ever see the movie They Live with Roddy Piper? Don't, David Bucky. Don't ask any other questions. David Bucky. Everyone leave the conversation except me and Neurolancer. Neurolancer, did you see the movie They Live? I came here to do two things: chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble gum. Neuro, this is like a one word. This is like a yes or no. Not really. You didn't see it. It just sucks. This is a great scene. You should put on the glasses, dude, or do that. I'm not making any assumptions. I haven't heard of that movie. You're fucking with me. Are you fucking with me? You're fucking maybe. I love you, but you're fucking with me. See that movie and stop fucking with me. But I love it. I love you. I do. If you were trying to get my goat, I think I thank you, because you didn't. You made me stronger. You haven't heard of that movie? Get the fuck out of here. But you've been out yadded yourself. If you're gonna troll, you got to do this. If you're gonna troll, you never give it away. You never give it away. And saying something like you never heard of They Live. I'm not saying that you lose trust. Okay. Neurolancer, I'm sorry. And Neurolancer, I'm gonna do this because I hate to be like this guy, but like because of all the things that you said, because there's been like kind of like there's been a uniqueness to your answers that either means that you are a very unique individual with a very unique world history, life history. That's entirely possible, and a very unique gaming history, entirely possible. But the notion that you've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since 2E, but you've never heard of the movie They Live, you're trolling. I love you, but you're fucking trolling, bro. I love you, but you're trolling, and you gave it away. You could have had me going, but you gave it away on They Live. But I thank you. You put on my glasses. I love you, though. Yeah, no. No. You're awesome. You're awesome, Neural Answer. I love you. But keep subscribe. Neural Answer, subscribe. Come to my live chats. You'll love me. I'm a total lolcal. I freak out all the time. You'll have fun with me. Four of Wands. Okay? From the Egyptian Tarot from 2003. Okay? Maintain order. Maintain control. And we can work together. Before things get wacky and the games break out in 5th edition, we can run 4th edition, but we got to run it by the book, right? We all got to work together. But if we work together, even though Wands is the suit of fire and fires can rage out of control, if we work together and we maintain the campfire, we keep our eye on it and we keep it square, right? The north, south, east, and west, we keep the perimeters square. We can make it through and we can make it happen. Absolutely, baby. Absolutely. Neural Answer says, I love for you. That's why I love OFTE. Is that OnlyFans 2nd edition? I'm lost here. Okay, I'm wondering what the heck's going on. Okay. We'll figure it out. Anyway, I love you. You're great. You're awesome. Please subscribe. It's awesome. Exactly. The chicken with the I know, David, the chicken. And thank you, David. I appreciate it. You're awesome, David. I can do. I love you. Thank you for everyone for participating. David, Neural Answer, you help. You normally when I do these live streams, no one new joins. Oh, PF to Pathfinder 2nd edition. That's awesome. Listen, hey baby. Well, hey, Neural Answer, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Neural Answer says I'm subscribed. That's awesome. Welcome. Dude, Neural Answer. It makes perfect sense that you like Pathfinder 2nd edition if you like 4th edition. But dude, that's what I'm talking about, the hypocrisy and the craziness, right? Pathfinder sucks. 4th edition sucks. 4th edition sucks. 4th edition sucks. But Pathfinder, WotC suck. You want to know how much WotC sucks? They did that 3.5 cash grab. And then Pathfinder come out. They just did 2nd edition in 2019. And here we are just 3 years later. All these cats and kittens just bought all the books, and then they come out and say, "Oh, we're going to do a remaster." Oh, it's totally compatible. This is exactly what they said. Wizards of the Coast said with 3.5 in 2003, and here we are 20 years later, and Pazio is literally doing a Wizards of the Coast with their version of 3.5, which is this Pathfinder remaster. The exact same. It's just minor changes, minor tweaks, but we really feel we need to do. We need to feel the erratic get together. But check this out, homie. Check this out, homie. Check this out, homie. Check this out, homie. Who is the main Blumen? The Jason is now kind of doing the Slavacek main lead thing now at Pazzo. But dude, Logan Bonner was additional design and development on 4th edition, and he's the main guy. It's my understanding he was the lead on Pathfinder. He was one of the leads on Pathfinder 2nd, and is definitely the lead on the Pathfinder remaster project. That's why he was on the Twitch stream with Jason Bay. So there you go. No wonder you like it so much. But remember, everyone was saying 4th edition sucks, 4th edition sucks. And how many people that said 4th edition sucks are saying that Pathfinder 2 is awesome? People are not making logical sense. And that's all I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to illustrate where people are not making logical and rational sense, just because I like it when people point out when I'm not making logical and rational sense. And if you're subscribed and you show up to the live streams, you might very well have plenty of opportunities to catch me out there. Okay, so I love you. I love you. I love you all. Thank you for participating. There you go. You've been thinking about things I agree with. There you go. Hey, look, everybody, there are things that we agree with and there are things that we disagree with, right? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Think, use your brains, but remember, everyone. Jonas said fourth edition. The only reason fourth edition did suck is because people don't like being computers. It's impossible to be a computer. Okay, it's impossible to be a computer, and that's what you're required to be. To be a DM for fourth edition, you would need to be a a hard drive. You would need to be able to run Diablo 3's basically, machine language in your brain. You can't keep track of the status effects. Pazio is a much better company than WotC is. That's where we disagree. How the fuck would you know, Neurolancer? You hang out with Pazio? You know the people at WotC? You don't know. You don't know. You don't know, baby. You've been told. You think. And why do you think that? Why do people think they like this president versus that president? Why do they think that, Kurt Cobain was awesome, but, Axl Rose was a total cheese dick, right? Why do they think Mickey Rourke is authentic as fuck, but Bruce Willis is lame? People just have feelings about things. You don't know these companies, and these companies don't know you, and they don't give a fuck about you. Buy the game that you want to play the game that you want to play, look at the art you want to look at, and know and understand. These guys are all corporate mofos, and they're all making dumbass calls all the time for their own benefit. And they're all screwed, and you're screwed too, and I'm screwed too, because all of these books and us, we are headed for the history bin, because tabletop role-playing game is inevitably headed for the dustbin of history. This is friggin' not going to last. It's not, folks. If you think it is, we can bet. You know what I mean? I think I got enough decades on planet Earth. Let's see. Will there be people playing? Sure. Will there be a vibrant, insane community like it is today? No. They'll be doing Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu. Those games will exist. They'll exist in a virtual computer environment with whatever community exists, and they'll know. Hey, back in the day, and you'll go to the company, and they'll have a plaque on the wall, and they'll have a glass case full of books. Back in the day, we published these as books, and people played them sitting around a table, rolling dice. Back in the day. Just like back in the day, we used to ride around on horses. People still ride horses. The Amish community is not thriving. It's not. And I got to hit the road. I really got to roll. But I love you. 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 I truly do.